what is that we are essentially going to discuss is the session's agenda has been already discussed with you all. It's going to be divided into two parts. One is going to be where we are going to talk about vocab building, and the other is going to talk about the common errors that we come across in grammar that we are going to look at. So while of course we will discuss this and we'll try to do it as much detail as possible, it may not essentially be possible to cover all of it, in the sense that going through all the rules and stuff like that. But having said that, we'll try and see whatever even from the bird's eye view, if we could do that. Number one. Second, the things that we're going to discuss here is going to be done in detail in the classes when you are coming for your classes on your, when you do your handouts and all of that. So rest assured, whatever we do here is going to obviously be, dealt with in detail going forward. So when I talk about intro to verbal, just to give you a very quick overview of why is that we are tested on English, is because English is a language of business everywhere. Okay, we got introduced to English because of colonization, and Britishers came to India for trade, first of all, and they did go to other parts of the world too for trade, and that is how English became the language of business. Now, when we talk about these aptitude exams, they essentially test us on nothing but how are we going to, be business developers going forward, and which is why the language that is spoken commonly across the globe, which is English, is what we essentially get tested on. So, I think this is something that we've already discussed and we all of us know. So let us look at what are the parameters that get evaluated when I talk about English as a language. Reading, listening, writing, and speaking are the four parameters that essentially we all get tested on. Reading is, of course, while you're taking the exam. Listening and writing and speaking happen predominantly in your group discussion, writing ability test, and personal interview, depending on whichever colleges that you're going to apply to. So when I talk about verbal ability as a section, it is going to test my ability or proficiency as a candidate as far as English as a language is concerned. And coming to what is the agenda for today, we are going to talk about what do we mean by grammar-based questions and word-based questions, because these are the two main domains other than reading comprehension that a candidate would get tested on. So when I talk about usage-based questions, these that you see on the screen, fill in the blanks, multiple usage, homophones, and misused words are the ones that we are going to get tested on. And there could be variants of it, of course. But whatever it is, the fundamentals remain the same, that these are essentially the parameters or the question types that I will have to know. And word-based questions are, of course, nothing but, So word-based questions are nothing but questions that we are going to, talk about in the sense that what are the things that we need to know as far as understanding words and getting to the answers are concerned. Because we had this question from one of the participants asking, how do we get at kind of being able to use the words and know the answers to it? So one very good technique, and I would want to call it a foolproof technique, as when I compare it with other ways of doing it, would be doing vocabulary through roots. Now, what are root words? Essentially, पहले वो देखते हैं. Now, when I say root words, these are the questions, first of all, that vocab-based questions are going to test me on. Now, consider a set of questions on synonyms, let's say. So when I say synonyms, let's say, will have a head word given to me, and then I have 5 options. I have to identify the answer of the given word, in the sense that I have to give the meaning of the word. When I say synonym, it's a meaning. When I say antonym, it's the opposite word. So imagine I have 1 word and 5 options to choose my options from. So that makes it 6 words, because CET mein you have 5 options. Okay. Now, when I say synonym is a set of, let's say, 5 questions. So I am getting tested on 30 words at a given point in time in a set of 5 questions on synonyms. Now, if I have synonyms and antonyms and odd man out and analogies, it is as good as getting tested on at least 80 to 90 words. I'm saying at least 80 to 90 words, and I have not spoken about usage-based questions so far. Okay, which is why it is extremely important to be able to understand the knack of remembering these words, which may not be possible just by learning them by heart, because we all are humans, we have our limitations, and it may not practically be possible to kind of learn them by heart, to literally, kind of do a rote learning kind of a thing. So what is that we do? We take help of what do we call as etymology. What is etymology basically? It is the way of understanding where is the derivation of the word coming from, what is the word getting derived from, and what are the different words that could be possible to be derived on the basis of the etymology of this particular word. So what I'm doing basically is understanding the origin of the word. And once I know the origin of the word, once I have understood where the word has gotten derived from and how, it is not really very difficult to remember it. And we will also take a few examples with regards to that. So this is what we mean by etymology, where I have the root. And see, it has been practically shown in that way, where ology means a study of something. So whatever you see on the screen, say biology, petrology, topology, neurology, pathology, I know that they all have got to do with study of something. So let's take, for example, biology. Now, what is biology? What do we study in biology? We study about animals, we study about plants, we study about humans. In general, we study about life. Okay. So I know that ology is a study of something, and bio will then does mean life. So biology becomes nothing but the study of life. Topology, once again, I believe everyone has, most of you, depending on the courses that you have been a part of, studied topology sometime or the other in your life in schools. So what did we do essentially in topology? It's a branch of geography where we talk about understanding the knowing about the places. We talk about how has the place come into being, what is the geography behind it, so understanding about the place. So I know that ology has got to do with study. So then when I talk about words like topography, topology, I know it has got something to do with topos, which might say mean land. Okay, land or place. So what am I doing basically? I am trying to identify the commonality between the words that will then help me understand what could be the commonality in the meanings of these words. And that is nothing but what you call as root words. So how do I, go about defining it? So when I say etymology, it is nothing but words having common spellings, which would always lead to some commonality in their meanings. And that is essentially how would one define etymology. So we have seen that example just a while ago, where ology was the common spelling and had a commonality in meaning in all the words that we had listed on that particular screen. So now let us see how do we make use of etymology to derive the meanings, because that is what we started the session with, talking about knowing the origin of the word. So how is it that it is going to help me is what we will see in the next example. Bibliopole. So when I say bibliopole, let's say I am someone who's never heard this word before. Okay, I am sure a lot of y'all might have heard the word before, and I'm sure y'all know the meaning too. And there might be a few who might have not read the word before, which is absolutely fine, because there's so many words. What can, how much can one remember? So when I look at the word, and let's say I'm totally clueless, but if I have learned the ID concept of etymology, can I really do anything about remembering the roots? Now, I would look at it in the sense that I'm going to talk about it as biblio as one particular root, and the other root, when I divide it, it would be pole. Okay, so I have two roots here, biblio and pole. I've divided into two roots. Now, when I look at biblio as a word, can you all give me words that come to your mind when I say biblio? Just think about it and tell me, put it on the chat maybe. Words that come to your mind when I say biblio. Absolutely right. Biblio means books, bibliophile. Yes, books, absolutely. Bibliography, correct. So biblio is book. Right, right, right. And what are the words that we have seen just now? We have seen bibliophile, bibliograph. Okay, so the root means book. Okay, any guesses for pole? Bible, absolutely. What does pole mean? Or what are the words that you can think of with the word pole in them? Think of words with pole. Oligopoly, very good, Amay. Oligopoly, monopoly, very good, Kiran. So what does oligopoly, monopoly, what do these words mean? Okay, mono is one. Yes, mono is one. What does poly mean? What is monopoly? Seller, single seller. Correct. Yes, yes. It means a single seller. Absolutely right. So what would pole mean then? Pole would mean monopoly, single seller. So pole would mean sell. Right. Pole would mean sell. So who's a bibliopole then? A person who would sell books. Okay, a bookseller. So I hope you've got a hang of how do we go about, in the sense that when I know that this particular, yes, one who sells book, a bookseller, correct. So when I know that this particular root has these meanings to it, and I have been able to divide, like somebody said, immediately they said that biblio is books. So this is how I can arrive at the meaning of the words, right? So this was just an exercise to help you understand how do we get at it. Now let us take some examples and try and understand how do we make use of it. Okay, so let's say I have given you these three words: science, omniscient, and conscious. Can you identify what would be the common root? What is the commonality in these words? What do you find common? Okay, right. And what do you think is the meaning of the root SCI here? What do you think would SCI mean? To know, absolutely right. It would mean to know, correct. So what is science? To have a knowledge of things. Who's omniscient? Whom would you call omniscient? Who knows it all. Absolutely right. One who knows everything. So here I will come across another root, omni, which would mean what then? What would omni mean? All. Absolutely right. What is conscious? Not one, Ashika. It would mean all. Okay. All. Yes. What is conscious? To be conscious of something meaning when you're aware of something, when you know something. Yeah, correct. So let's look at what is the root of it. Sai, which means to know. Now try and give me the meaning of this particular word. What do you think would this word mean? Break it into roots. Correct. So what are the roots that I could break it into? The one who thinks before doing anything, nahi Amay. One who knows things beforehand. Pre is one root and sai is another root. Pre means before and sai is to know. So to know things beforehand is when you are prescient. Correct. Correct. Let's take another example. Give me the root word. Okay, correct. That is the root. And what does it mean? Eat. Correct. So what is the meaning of this then? Voracious. Heavy eater. Yes, heavy eater. Yes, but not essentially a heavy eater, but someone who consumes a lot. Correct. Consumes a lot, literally anything. Okay. For example, someone would be called as a voracious reader. Now, what do I mean by a voracious reader? Someone who's a uh, very well read person, because someone who's read a lot, someone who's an avid reader. Okay. So, literally eating up books. Okay. So, consumption, a lot of consumption could be in any sense. Okay. That is voracious. So, you see how you actually now see here you have the word carnivore, herbivore, omnivore. So because we already know what does omni mean, I know that omnivore means someone who would. What is an omni? Who's an omnivore? Whom would you call an omnivore? One who eats everything. Correct. Whom would you call a carnivore? Who eats flesh. Correct. Okay. So on this line, I'm going to give you another set of words on this note, and which is this. Chalo, tell me the root. Correct. And what do you think does it mean? Absolutely right. Drishti, absolutely right. It would mean flesh. So what is carnage then? What do you think is carnage? Genocide. Absolutely right, Drishti. Carnage is genocide, massacre. Okay. What is reincarnation? What is reincarnation? Rebirth. Correct. So somebody asked me, is etymology prefix or suffix? Etymology essentially is a combination all of the three. Okay. So when we talk about the structure of the word, we will see how it means that it is a structure of all of these things. Okay. Yes. And what is carnival? Flesh eating festival. Okay. All right. All right. So, give me the meaning of the word cardinal. What does cardinal mean? Parade. No. Cardinal. Okay. No. Well, it means physical desires. Okay. Something that has got to do with your body desire. Absolutely right. It has got to do with physical desire. Correct. That is what it means. Okay. Now, one more set and we will come to carnival back again. Give me the meaning, sorry, root of the words that you see in front of you. Right. Right. And what does it mean, you say? What does it mean? Word. Yes. It means word or name. Okay. So, what is a toponym? Name of place. Amma, you are close. But name of places se zyada, it would mean names derived from names of places. Okay. So yes, names of places, something related to land, yes, but names derived from names of places. Okay. So we will see examples of both of these. And there is also something called as mythonym. What is an acronym, guys? What do you mean by an acronym? What is an acronym? And what is the difference between an acronym and an abbreviation? Yeah, short form, yes. So what is the difference between acronym and abbreviation? So WHO is what? Am I acronym hai ya abbreviation hai? Are they the same, Avinash? They are not. They're not the same. Yes, it's an acronym, correct. Why is it an acronym? Because whenever you have a word getting formed by the initial letters of a word, for example, TIME, time. Okay. Is it an acronym or an abbreviation? TIME, time is an acronym or an abbreviation? It's an acronym, correct. Why? Because the initial letters help you form a word in themselves. Okay. CAT, cat as an exam is an acronym, whereas CET is an abbreviation because you don't really call it set, but CAT ko you call cat. Okay. So that is the difference between the two, right? SBI and RBI are abbreviations. Absolutely right. So let us look at, when we were talking about carnival and we said that how do we come at identifying that as a word? So what is the origin of the word carnival? Let's first understand that. So when I say carnival and you all said it's a flesh eating festival, yes, I think you must be aware of this 40-day Lent period that is there in Christianity, where it's a Lent 40-day mourning period for the Catholics. So when they are mourning, they essentially do not eat meat, they observe this Lent period where they are not going to consume meat. And they would have this carnival just before it where they would feast on flesh. Okay. Where carn would mean flesh and val is the word for goodbye. So if y'all have heard of, I'm sure y'all have, of the word valedictory. Okay. A valedictorian or a valedictory speech. What is a valedictory speech or who's a valedictorian? Someone who's giving the speech at their farewell. They might be doing it during their graduation. They might be doing it when they are absolutely right, when they are retiring. Okay. So val is the dict is the root, dict is the root, which means to speak, where you get words like diction, dictation, dictate, and so on. Okay. And val is the root, which means bidding goodbye. So it is goodbye to eating meat, which is why it is called as carnival. Okay, that is where, I'm sorry, that is where the meaning of the word carnival comes from. So what did we do just now? We identified the origin of the word carnival, the etymology of it. Let's look at toponym. So as you all mentioned, that toponym is names of places. Someone said it's a name of land. So what does it mean essentially? Look at this word. And does any toponym come to your mind when you see this? Which place is this? What is written there? Can you read it? Yes. So what word comes to your mind when you say Bangalore? And what is it very famous for? Of course, city. I am. Okay. What else? What else? It's a hub, IT hub. Absolutely right. Yes, it's an IT hub. Okay. So there was a time when Americans were losing their jobs because their jobs were getting outsourced to people in Bangalore. Okay. So they would say that our jobs got Bangalored to people, which means our jobs got outsourced because it is a IT, it is an IT hub. A lot of jobs were getting transferred to people living in Bangalore because obviously IT है तो मतलब काम हो रहा था, cost effective भी था because of course it was India, so their jobs were getting outsourced, which is why the word Bangalore. Okay, Bangalore is the word, which is a toponym. Let's look at one more. Identify this place. What is this place? Kolkata. Yes. Hyderabad. Yes. What place in Hyderabad? What does it look like? Hmm. Okay, let me give it to you. Does it ring a bell? Yes. Yes. Golconda Fort. What was it known for? What is the peculiarity of it? What is the peculiarity of it? Yes, that and no, diamonds, correct. Diamonds, yes. So place full of wealth, riches, okay, which is why this now exhibits place full of wealth and riches. Absolutely right. Yes, yes, Malika. So that is what is Golconda very famous about. What about this? Not wine, not beer, champagne, yes, not white wine, champagne. Champagne, not bottle. Daksh, it's champagne. And what is the source of it? Where is it? Where did it originate? Yes, it comes from a region of Champagne in France. Correct. Correct. So now champions drink it. Not really. Yes, France. That's right. That's right. Okay. So there is a place called Champagne in France, जहाँ पे ये drink originate हुआ था, which is why it is named as Champagne. So Champagne is now a toponym. Okay. So I hope you all understand what do we mean by toponyms. Now I hope you've got a good hang of it. It essentially means anything that is derived from the name of a place. Make sense? MM. What is MM? Okay. Let's look at this. We'll come to that later, I guess. Well, let's look at this. Have you all heard of Trojan War? Okay. So you remember we spoke of something called as mythonym. Mythonym. You know, when we were doing acronym, antonym, synonym, you give the name as the root word. Yes, words derived from mythology. Correct. So there are a lot of words in English that are derived from Greek mythology. So let us have a look at few of them. Zeus, I believe we all know. Okay. So have you heard of this phrase called as apple of discord? Heard of it? Apple of discord? No. Okay. Yes. No. Okay. So you see these three personalities here: Aphrodite, Athena, and Hera. Okay. These three personalities had, I mean, there was a apple that was supposed to be given to the one who would be the fairest of all. Okay. And Paris, as the Prince of Troy, was given the stars to do it. And yes, absolutely right, Athar. The golden apple. Correct. And whoever would be the fairest of all would get this apple, and this created or generated jealousy among the women here that you see on the screen, which is why apple of discord. What does discord mean? Discord means something that causes disagreement between people. Yeah, rift. Yes. So that is something which created a disagreement or generated disagreement between people, which is why it was called as apple of discord, which was to be given to the fairest. And who was supposed to do it? It was Paris who was supposed to do it. So that leads us to Paris's judgment. So Aphrodite bribed Paris into saying that if you say that I am the fairest of all, I will let you or help you elope with Helen. Helen eloped with Paris, and that led essentially to Trojan War. So what happened was, Paris, when was asked who is the fairest of all, said that Aphrodite was the fairest of all because she said that she would help him elope with Helen, and which is why that led to Trojan War. So Paris's judgment, meaning any judgment that you take which leads to disastrous or catastrophic consequences. So Helen's beauty became another reason. So when Paris saw Helen, he fell in love with her, and Helen's beauty became the unit of beauty. So when you say someone's got Helen's beauty, meaning they are extremely beautiful. Okay, so that became the unit of beauty. So whatever you see right now on the screen essentially are words that are, or rather, I would say phrases that are derived from mythology, Greek mythology, that essentially have their origins in Avinash, you could read Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan, where you would get these stories. Rick Riordan, Percy Jackson. And Percy Jackson essentially is a book for kids to understand Greek mythology, but I think it's a very good book to begin with. Okay, so you could read that. Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan. I would do that. Just a second. Okay, try this. It's a good book. And you must have also, I think, watched movies. A lot of you all now watch movies now. So maybe, yeah. I know. Okay. And of course, Trojan horse, which was known for what? What was Trojan horse known for? Do you see there's actually a horse that has got so many compartments inside it. So it was given as a gift to Troy. From the Spartans, it was given as a gift to Troy, and there were actually soldiers in it. There was actually soldiers in it, and there were a lot of secret compartments, actually, Madhura, not just one. So this horse was gifted to them, and in the night they decided that they will try and look at it tomorrow. Absolutely, sneak attack, Kajal, correct. So what happened is, on that night itself, all the soldiers came out and they besieged the fort, the fort of Troy, and that is how actually this Trojan War concluded. So when I say Trojan horse, it means an act of perfidy, something that is going to deceive you, is a Trojan horse. Okay, so that is where the term or the expression Trojan horse come from, a person or a thing that is intended to destroy you, right, from within. Correct. So that is essentially the meaning of the word Trojan horse. So I don't know if you all have watched the movie Troy. If you've watched the movie Troy, you will see that all of this gets explained in that movie really, really very well. Okay, so one way is to read the book, of course. I would always advocate, I'm always for reading the book. And other is that you please watch the movie Troy. For once, I'm recommending that you watch that movie. Okay, so that's about mythonyms. And we do have a small exercise, but I think we have this time crunch too. So would you, what first should be done? Avinash, always the book. I think nothing really competes with reading a book. Okay, I think I would always say always a book first. Always, always. Okay. Yeah. So would you like to do one more exercise, or shall we go ahead with doing something on grammar? What do you want to do? Grammar? Yeah. Oh, one more exercise. Okay, we will do grammar first. If time permits, we'll come back to doing this. Okay. Does that make sense? I know. We will do one more, but let us also look at some bit of grammar and we come back to doing this. Okay, just give me a minute. Right. So before we get into it, a very quick question. What is grammar? What do you think is the need for it? And how do you think does it help? What is grammar? Guidelines. Okay. Guidelines for what? To communicate effectively, sentence structure, proper meaning. Okay. But as I keep saying, in all my sessions, that when I talk about proper meaning, and if I have already learned the language, what is the need for knowing the rules? Absolutely, Chetas. Rule of language, parts of speech, Anshika, absolutely right. Standardizing it, absolutely right, Jailam. I need to standardize the language now. And why do you need to standardize the language? Let's look at this. We know that there are two systems of language. Okay, which are the two systems of language we see on the screen here? British and American. So, of course, there are some differences in them, in the sense that the word is used, in the sense that the words are pronounced, in the sense that the structure of a language is, I mean, formal hai, ki informal and stuff like that. So, to avoid any type of confusion, because there are these two conventions existing, we have grammar in place, which will standardize the language, which will maintain uniformity, and which will in turn give us the yes, absolutely right. A lift, elevator, football, soccer, biscuit, cookie, flat, apartment, these kind of differences. So I can't do much about the vocabulary, but can I do something about standardizing it in the sense that everyone would use the same rules is what grammar essentially does. Now, what are the errors evaluated when I talk about grammar? So essentially, see what happens is when you're solving your paper, when you're taking your exam, when you do it in the class, you know that, okay, I have my class on nouns and articles. So I have to look for errors related to nouns and articles. Now I have a class on adjectives. I have to look for errors related to adjectives. But what happens when I have a sentence given to me in the exam and I have to find the error in that? What will happen is most definitely that you will have to, rather you will get tested on multiple errors at the same time. So I will need a template in my mind which will tell me that, okay, first मेरे को ये error check करना है, then I have to look for this, then I have to look for this. So that hierarchy in my head should be developed. Following which, what will happen is I will train my brain in such a way that whenever a sentence comes to me, I will try and look at it in the same fashion. So what are the errors that I need to keep my brain getting trained for? First is pronoun antecedent agreement. We will see what do they mean when we take examples for each of these. Another is subject verb agreement. Then you have tenses errors, modifiers, which is nothing but adjective adverbs. Okay, so don't get bogged down by these jargons at all. Next is parallelism. May I please request you all to keep your mics on mute? And miscellaneous, which is a combination of all of this and, of course, some idioms, if you all remember. So let us understand each of these in detail. While, of course, we will have to talk about language structure, but I think I will, kind of very quickly take you through this. So when I say language structure, this is the smallest unit of language that I talk about. It's a hierarchy of the language. So I start with sound, which is vowels and consonants. Then I have words, and words are defined as parts of speech. So this introduces me to the idea of parts of speech in grammar. Then I have phrases, clauses, and these together help me build a sentence that are of three types essentially: simple, compound, and complex. Okay. So when I say sound is the smallest unit of language, essentially the letters A, E, I, O, U. Okay. These letters help me identify the sound, because when I say these letters, they are nothing but words that letters that whose sound come directly from your vocal cords. So those are A, E, I, O, U. Now, How do I define a sentence? I have I have an example in front of you, and the sentence reads, she wrote a letter. Okay, now as it is shown here, I know that wrote is a action word. Now who is performing the action? She is performing the action. So who becomes the doer of the action? She. So whenever I have the doer of the action in the sentence, it is the subject of the sentence. And whenever I have the entity receiving the action, or the entity that the action is done on, is the object of the sentence. So who eats? She does. She is the subject. What does she I'm so sorry, who writes? She does. And what does she write? A letter. So that becomes the object. So she is the subject and letter is the object. Now here in this, you all tell me what is the subject and which is the object. She is the subject. Fair enough. And me is the object. Right. Correct. And the action word obviously is so. So how do I define a sentence? Basically, a sentence is nothing but a group of words that have a subject and a verb in them and are always independent. Okay, please remember, sentences will have to have, see, they may or may not have the object. They may sometimes even not have the subject also. Okay, but they will always have a verb and they are always independent. Okay, sentence in itself is always independent, right? So phrases and clauses, I think we could skip it because I want to look at doing errors first. So I think we'll start with this. So of course, when we were looking at errors, because phrases, clauses se related kuch hai nahi, I'm skipping that for a bit. If time permits, we'll come back to this. So the first error that I need to look for is subject verb agreement. Now, what do I mean by subject verb agreement? It says that my verb needs to agree with my subject in its number. So when I say number, what do I understand by that? Singularity and plurality of any subject. Okay, so singular, plural in that sense. So let's say I have a sentence. Can you identify what is the error in the sentence? It is perhaps not incorrect to say that youth are wasted on young people. Not incorrect is fine, na? Not incorrect means it is correct to say, you know? Yes, absolutely. It should be youth is wasted. Why should it be youth is wasted? Because what type of noun is youth? First of all, I'm talking about youth as an abstract, uncountable noun. I can't count it, no? So because I can't count it, I know that it will never have a plural form. So it is wrong to say are wasted. It should be is. So what should my sentence be? So this is a subject verb agreement error. Why do I say that? Because this is my subject. Okay, and this is my verb, if you can recall helping verbs. Okay, so because this is a singular subject, because this is singular, my verb also has to be singular, which is, and it can't be are. So this is one of the rules of, and there are multiple rules as I've mentioned, but just to give you a hang of how do you get tested on it. So first thing that I should be looking for is my SV agreement. Okay, let's look at this one. Noun, pronoun. So what is a pronoun basically? A pronoun is a word that I use in place of a noun. And why do I use it in place of a noun? To avoid repetition of using the same noun again and again, you know. So when I'm using it in place of a noun, it should be following all the rules that the noun is following. You know, if noun is acting as a subject, the pronoun should also act as a subject. If the noun is acting as an object, the pronoun should also act as an object, so on and so forth. So let us look at this particular example and tell me what is the error that you find in the sentence. Yeah, it should be, it was I. Correct. Why should it be, it was I? Why should it be, it was I? Because it is the subject of the sentence. Correct. What is the action being done? Documenting the Naxalite movement. Okay. Who has documented the movement? If I ask you the question, who has documented the movement? Your answer will always obviously be, I have done it. You would not say, me have done it. Okay. Me is when I am on the receiving end of the action. For example, you are answering me. And I am asking you. So I am asking you. I am doing the action of asking. You are answering me. So you are doing the action of answering. I am on the receiving end of getting your answers. Okay. Me is not a possessive pronoun, Amay. Me is an objective pronoun. Okay. Possessive would be my and mine. Right. So here my correction would be, it is I who documented the Naxalite movement. Right. Let's take one more. Tenses errors. That's the question for you. Can you identify what is the error here and how would you correct it? Which had? There are two hads here. Which had? Okay. 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 How many actions are mentioned here? How many actions does the author talk about? Second is unnecessary. Second had is not needed. Correct. There are two actions. Okay. One is reaching the auditorium. Second is starting of the program. Which happened earlier? Reaching happened earlier, right? And then it was followed by the starting of the program. So the rule says, whenever I have two actions of the past, okay, where the actions have happened one after the other, they are not simultaneous actions, they have happened one after the other. The one that happened earlier has to be given in past perfect tense. That is why had reached is okay. And the one that follows it has to be given in simple past tense, which is why I will have to drop the had in the second one. Okay. This is the rule and the only rule that I need to use and need to remember whenever I have to use the past perfect tense of a sentence. So the rule says, once again, when I have two actions of the past, the earlier action needs to be given in the past perfect tense and the following action needs to be in simple past tense. So what will my final answer look like? We had reached the auditorium before the program started, where this will be in simple past tense because this is the second action. First action, past perfect. Second action, simple past. Okay. Modifiers, errors. What are modifiers? We've already mentioned them as adjectives and adverbs. Okay. So what do they do essentially? What does an adjective do? It modifies a noun. It, you remember describing words, they will tell you the quality of a noun. An adverb will tell you the quality of an adjective. Hai. So instead of now calling it a defining a word or an qualifying word or a describing word, I would suggest you call them modifiers because errors are related to modifiers. Now, so you better start using the words accordingly. Okay. So modifier error. Let us see how do we get tested on them. Everyone applauded him judiciously for handling such a challenging issue. What do you think is the error in the sentence? Okay, what about judiciously? What about it? What about it? Absolutely right, Avinash. Absolutely right. Did he get applause from people judiciously? Do you applaud someone judiciously? सोच समझ के applaud करते हो क्या? When someone has done something, you applaud them, right? For doing it. So everyone applauded him, but how did he handle the issue? He handled it very judiciously. बहुत ही समझदारी से he handled the issue, right? So I am saying that everyone applauded him for handling such a challenging issue, which was done very judiciously. So judiciously, anything, see, please remember, anything ending in ly is an adverb. Okay. So judiciously is an adverb. Now there are two verbs here. One is applauded. Second is handling. So grammatically the sentence is fine because it is modifying applauded. But the problem is with modifying the wrong word. That is why it is called as a modifier error. It should be modifying handling the issue. Okay. Not applauding judiciously. So my correction would be what? Everyone applauded him for handling such a challenging issue judiciously. So now this is getting modified by the word judiciously. This is a modifier error. Basically, hota kya hai modifier errors mein? They put it at the wrong place. And why are they very tricky? Because you don't really know how are they wrong, because grammatically they will not make so much of a difference to your sentence. What they will essentially do is just change the meaning, which is why you got to be very careful with the placements of these. They may not be, Amay. Not necessarily. Sometimes they might also come in the beginning. For example, she's always late, so always helping verb ke immediately baad mein hai. but in the middle of the sentence. Are you with me? Okay. Parallelism. What does parallelism basically mean? This might be a new term for a few of you. It basically means that you should be using the same part of speech with a particular type of conjunction. Okay. I'll give you an example, then we'll come to this particular example that I have on the screen. So let's say I have a sentence which says, she needed three things: money, power, and to be secure. She needed three things: money, power, and to be secure. Can you identify the error here? Correct. Why should it be security? What is wrong with to be secure? What is wrong to be? What is wrong with to be? It's like a verb. It's actually, yes, that is, I mean, you know what? It is two plus the base form of verb. While, of course, it is not really acting like a noun in the sentence. It should be that way. And, you know, even when you say that infinitive is two plus verb form, but it is not really acting like the other two forms. So, money is a noun form, power is a noun form, and it is joined by the conjunction and, so even the last word should be in the same part of speech, है ना? So structure भी same होना चाहिए. That is what parallelism is. Can you say you like singing, dancing, and to write? Would that be correct to say you like singing, dancing, and to write? No. Why? What is wrong there? You like singing, dancing, and writing. Okay. So you have to be very, very clear on uh, doing something which has the same part of speech throughout. Okay. आपका part of speech नहीं change होना चाहिए. So how would you go about doing it is, remember that one part of speech या फिर one you know, construction is followed throughout. Let's take this example. Can you identify the error? First of all, tell me which is the conjunction used. Which is the conjunction used here? Yes, the conjunction is neither nor. Correct. What type of conjunction is it, anyone? What type of conjunction is neither nor, either or, not only but also? What is the type? Correlative. Correct. These are correlative conjunctions. Right, right. So, any guesses on how can I make this sentence parallel? Any guesses on that? How can I make the sentence parallel? एक तो yes, remove it is absolutely right. Neither के बाद में there is for the masses ना, so nor के बाद में also it should be for the classes. Can you make your sentence even more concise? Can you make your sentence even more crisp? You know, you should be looking at making your sentences crispier. Correct. So what will you, absolutely right, Drishti. What will you do is, you will try and take out all the common elements, you know. Now, what is getting repeated twice here? The word for. So what will you do? Safarnama as a book. You'll put it here and you will do away with, you will say Safarnama as a book for neither the masses nor the classes. Okay? Now, what you've done is you've taken the common element out and you've made your sentence even more concise. The more concise it is, the better it is for the reader to also understand, and the less convoluted. Now, you only say that when you read RC's, sentences are longer and then you kind of zone out while you're reading them, you know. So keep it, even when you're the author, you're supposed to take care of that thing. So how will you correct it? Safarnama is a book for neither the masses nor the classes. Neither the mass, I'm so sorry, neither the masses nor the classes. And you simply take this out and you do away with it is. Okay. So that is about the parallelism error. Any questions you have? This might have been slightly new, I don't know. So why did they change the position of book? Book का position तो वही है ना? Amay, we have not changed the position of book. Safarnama is a book. It is still the same in the correction also. Yes. Amay, are you with me? Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't see that. ठीक है. And next is idiomatic. Now, idiomatic has got two meanings to it. One is that you need to know using words and sentences in a particular way, especially with the use of prepositions. And the second is to understand idioms. Now, there is one type of question that you get in the exam is that they will test you on idioms. Now, there are two ways in which they could test you on idioms. One is that they will give you a sentence. They will use an idiom in the sentence and they will ask you to identify the meaning of it, or they will directly give you the idiom. Now, when they are giving you an idiom in the sentence, it becomes easier to understand the meaning because from the context of the sentence, you can still make out what would it mean. लेकिन जब idioms directly देते हैं, तब it will get slightly challenging because you might either know the meaning of the idiom or you would not know. ठीक है? So how do we do it? Let's say I give you the idiom crocodile tears. What does it mean? What does crocodile tears means? Fake tears. Correct. Pretentious. And why would I say fake tears? What is the origin of crocodile tears? Unnecessary emotion तो नहीं होता. Not unnecessary emotion, guys. Yeah, they don't cry. Correct. They don't cry, because they can't cry because they don't have tear glands. So that is why it is called as crocodile tears, fake tears. What is born with a silver spoon? Someone who's born with all the luxury and riches. Correct. So that is when you are born with a silver spoon. What is once in a blue moon? Which is once in a very, very long time, once in a while. Yeah, that is, yes, once in a blue moon. What is a white elephant? Useless. It is not just useless, it is expensive and it is taking too much of maintenance. That is when you call something a white elephant. Yeah. So yes, while of course expensive and like your car has become a white elephant, too much of maintenance, very less mileage. That is a white elephant. And what do you mean by from the horse's mouth? Yeah, from the authentic source. Correct. Why white? Yeah, good question. White elephant, white चीजों को maintain करना कितना difficult है ना? It's so difficult ना? White कपड़े पहनो तो सबसे ज्यादा tension होता है कि कहीं कुछ गिर गया तो, कहीं कुछ लग गया तो. That is why white elephant. Okay. So from the horse's mouth, what is from the horse's mouth? So in earlier times now, people used to, so when I see a horse, it might be very difficult for me to really understand the age of the horse. So people who are expert at that can look at the teeth of the horse and gauge the age of the horse, right? Which is why the horses gives its age from its own mouth. That is why you say from the horse's mouth, meaning from the actual authentic source. That is why it is called as from the horse's mouth. So what I've understood from these idioms is that they have generally they have origins. So if you remember the origins of the idioms, it always is easier to remember the meanings of them also. So even when they give you like here, everyone could identify all of them like that. But if it is something that might be slightly difficult, for example, say currying favor or something like that, if I know, well and good. If I don't know, in the sentence, contextual meaning could be gauged, but just like that, it might become slightly difficult. Now, there was a question saying, where do we get this? So, for the ones, for the ones who have already enrolled with us, we have this study material where we share these idioms with them. And it is also uploaded on your student homepage. So you could access it from your SHP. And of course, you have study material where all these idioms are listed and so many more. So you can go and keep looking at their meanings. And because there is very short time, very less time left for it, I would say keep reading upon it every day so that you don't really have to learn them by heart just because you're reading them every day. You will get a hang of it. Okay. So, yeah, that essentially brings us to the culmination of the session here today. And what is the book number? Now, book number, Avinash, I may not know. If you are a student with us, you could get it from, some faculty member who you could get your books and they could probably look at it and tell you. It should be on your verbal ability book. Okay, verbal ability. Yes, yes, Ashika. PPT, I think it's all going to get uploaded. It has been mentioned. Yeah. SM116240 Right. So that's the one.
We will be sharing this recording on the YouTube and we'll share the link with you all.
Yeah. What kind of books you want to read, Chetas? Fiction में क्या read करना है आपको? Suspense. You could read books by Jeffrey Archer. You could read books. Jeffrey Archer की पढ़ो. The Prisoner of Birth पढ़ो. अच्छी book है. Thriller है. The Silent Patient is also very good. Okay. The Silent Patient. Dan Brown books are also very good. Da Vinci Code. Okay. Read The Silent Patient. It's a very nice psychological thriller. Gone Girl. That's another psychological thriller that you could read upon. Try these. That is Mystery Ayush. Yes. Agatha Christie. And then there were none. How to increase accuracy in verbal section? I think practice is the best way out and the only way out. For beginners ही बता रही हूँ मैं सौरभ. For beginners, don't read Agatha Christie. You might want to read Sidney Sheldon की आप Tell Me Your Dreams पढ़ो. Tell Me Your Dreams by Sidney Sheldon. Tell Me Your Dreams. Tell Me Your Dreams by Sidney Sheldon. Well, for logistics, I can't really do much. Krishnadas, I'm not sure. And yeah, Adventures of Feluda is also good by Satyajit Ray. Yes. Suggest some books which can help me in CAT and CET. I'm not sure I understand your question. To Kill a Mockingbird is also good. Yes. What should be a starting point when learning verbal ability? Just keep doing whatever has been done in class. Okay. Please keep solving them from your study material and keep taking sectional tests. If you are able to do that, nothing like it. Malika, I can't say how much time can you give per RC because you will have less than a minute to give for every question. So I would say solve the direct questions first, okay? That is the vocabulary, grammar, para jumbles and all of that. And then, of course, you can do it. Then you can come to RCs. Go through the theory, do the, Yash, that is to answer your question. Go through the theory that you've done in class. And please solve questions on that. If you have any doubts, do get in touch with your faculty members. How else? I mean, I don't see any other way out. Keep practicing. Keep practicing. If you're getting 110 without, I mean, if these are your decent attempts, I think you can do even better and you should be able to do. I teach on the central side. What is the difference between a verb? Well, there is a main verb and a helping verb. You will do more of this when you come for your verbs and tenses classes. Okay. Helping verbs are like is, am, was, were, these ones. Sentence jumbling questions go by options, Drishti. 99.99 Avinash. Aditi, I would say that you look at direct questions. First, you look at the questions, then you look at solving the passages. But problem क्या है CET में? You get questions one by one. So, I think पहले questions देख लो, उसके बाद में passage decide करो आपको solve करना है कि नहीं. By looking at the questions, you will get a hang of what the passage is. You need to be a 99 for all the colleges that you're aiming for. Sydenham, JB, whatever. I mean, 99 plus. It's going to get uploaded, Kajal, from what I've understood. Okay. Yes. Any more questions? Score marks. Marks will depend on, Avinash, the level of difficulty. I mean, nobody can tell you because marks keep changing every year. Okay. That will depend on the level of difficulty and what the highest percentiler has scored. And accordingly, your marks, your percentile gets decided. CET marks are on the same lines as the actual mark. Atharv, just keep, taking sectional tests. That is very important. Study material, sectional test, and full length mocks. This should be your level of solving. Moderately difficult, Tejaswini. Amay, I think you need to go through the basics. Go through your book on grammar, look at the rules of solving them, and then try and do it. And if you get stuck, do get in touch with someone. Okay. Every material is given on the verbal ability book. Verbal ability ke book mein you will get vocabulary, parajumbles, and the grammar ke book mein you will get everything related to grammar. Verbal ability RC के जो books है उसमें सारा verbal का material मिल जाएगा. Any more questions? Reading newspapers should help, but you have to keep solving and practicing a lot. Okay, practice RCs if that is your problem. So don't remember the rules now. I just go through them and keep solving. See, the more you solve, the more you get stuck with something, and the more you get your doubts clarified. I think that should be good enough. Sectional test karo. Grammar pe sectional test karo. I told Malika, first you read the questions, then you decide whether you want to solve that RC also or not in the first place. And then according to the question types, whichever are the direct ones, you solve them first. Whichever are more inferential in nature, keep them for later. Or just mark some answer that you think might be the closest and move ahead. I'm not sure, Chetas. CET doesn't have any, doesn't have any negative marking. Go by options, Venu. अथर पहले वो खत्म करो ना, सेक्शनल टेस्ट भी है ना, सेक्शनल टेस्ट भी करो. iPhone, I don't know your name. Speaking English frequently. Keep reading, keep speaking. How to remember? See, it may not be possible to remember all the root words, but try and remember whatever that you can. Okay, nobody remembers everything. That is absolutely okay. Don't beat yourself up, Ashika. No, Zoeb. It is very much on the lines of same as what your actual CT is. Thank you so much. Any more questions? Before you take another mock, Tejaswini, I would suggest that you take the sectional test and solve the study material. Then you go for the full length mock. Try and speak more, Amay. You will get it. Okay. Just keep doing what you want to get better at. Yeah, answer says watch English news channels. Yes. Do that, Amay. That should help. All right. So, yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure interacting with you all. And all the best. I hope it was of some value addition to you all. And do keep studying. Okay. Oh, yeah, exercise. I think we don't really have the bandwidth for that. So it will be shared with you anyway. And then you kind of can try and, do it on your own. Okay. Thank you so much.